Welcome to Playfully Orange, our conversations about arts and culture here in Central Florida. My guest today is John Payne Rios. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon. How are you, Terry?
Good.
Good.
So let's find out a little bit about you. Where do you come from?
So I am originally from Lafayette, Louisiana. It's about 2 hours west of New Orleans. It's a moderately sized town, about the size of Lakeland, but we're known there for our rich Cajun culture, and we have several festivals there, Festival International de Louisiane, and just being really kind of rooted in that traditionally French culture. So that's where a lot of my background and my viewpoint comes from.
And so definitely festivals are full of the arts, but
Yeah.
you have made a living in one way or another through the arts. What drew you to that as opposed to food, which is also part of it?
Well, yeah, food's definitely a part of Louisiana. I think that for me, I was always involved in arts from a very young age, thanks to my mom. My mom was a part of the Acadiana Symphony Women's League. So, again, in a small town, the arts culture there is just very, for what it was very thriving, right? And so I got on stage when I was 7 years old. I was going to the symphony a lot, what have you, and my mom got wind of an audition, but she didn't really know a lot about it. So I show up, and long story short, I get cast in a local production of Cinderella Ballet. I was 7, and I was a horse. So that was kind of my first foray into theater. And we were kind of a musical household. My dad's favorite musical was Oliver. My mom loved short hair and kind of she came to that 70s vibe. So yeah, it's always just kind of been a part of my life. And then when I went to school, I went to LSU. The joke in the house is that any school that's goofy enough to give my mother a degree, my father a degree, and myself a degree, we have to root for. So I was kind of a legacy kid. But I loved LSU. And when I was there, I was cast in an improv troupe by a gentleman by the name of Dr. David Charles. He's actually coincidentally a professor at Rollins College right now. And he cast me in my first improv show. And I've been doing it ever since. And then I came to Orlando, was in the art scene. I was getting my master's in theater. And I was working at Arabian Nights. I was working at Sleuth's Mystery Dinner Theater. Just kind of odds and ends all around until I landed in education. And I've always kind of been in the education field. My father was a professor. And so for me, that was how I was able to, as an artist, get a steady paycheck and be able to influence others and be able to have that kind of drive and the inspiration that really promotes creativity and the arts. So yeah, that's a little bit about my journey.
Well, when you arrived in Orlando from Louisiana, what was your perception of our cultural scene here?
So it's interesting coming from an outsider's perspective. Outsider, right? I consider myself a Central Floridian. I've lived here since 2005, so I've been here a good long while. I think that I'm going to use kind of a Cajun example. So where I'm from, it was like a gumbo. In other words, the arts and the cultural scene were kind of mixed in as one kind of pot, and it very much influenced the other. And I think from an outsider's perspective, for somebody who's not from Orlando, they see it as what's called a dosage cake, which is like a 10-layer or an 8-layer cake. And I think that people sometimes see Orlando as maybe like the first 2 layers of the cake. But since living here and really diving into the cultural and the art scene, it's just like layer after layer after layer, and it just doesn't stop. And that's what I really appreciate about Orlando and the arts and cultural scene here, because I think it's very unique and one of a kind.
What have been some of your most memorable or impressive arts or cultural experiences in Central Florida?
Let's see. I went to the rededication of the Maitland Arts Museum a few months back. That was absolutely gorgeous. I'd never been up there before, and it's nice to know that even as recently as a couple of months ago, I'm still discovering new things. Right, and it was a beautiful experience up there. I think that really looking at the development. So maybe not necessarily just one thing, but just kind of seeing this almost exponential curve. since I've been here since 2005 of the arts. I think that's really been exciting to see, and really seeing how the investment in the arts by this community and by several of the cultural organizations here, it's really just had this steady incline, and I love that about Orlando. And I think it's one of my favorite things, is that there's always something new.
You mentioned a couple of the dinner attractions, which of course rely on theatrical and music and costume and the arts.
Yes.
We are a unique community in that we've got these huge attractions that bring in trained people. But you've transitioned from that into the education realm, and also have you done performance?
Yeah. So I was in a Fringe show. I'm on the board of Orlando Fringe. So I was in a Fringe show many years ago. My first experience with Fringe, I guess, kind of going back to that kind of cake example, it was the first layer that I discovered kind of here in Orlando in 2008, and that was the first time I had attended Fringe. And so it was really interesting to kind of go through that experience and see that more localized level of what arts has to offer here in Orlando.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure at Fringe you encountered lots of people that also make a living at one of the theme parks, or
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
the for-profit industries definitely help our nonprofit industries in the arts survive.
And I think that's really something that I'm really looking forward to, and the kind of trajectory of my career, right? Because we never stop growing, we never stop learning. And so right now I'm the technical theater director over at Howard Middle School. It's a great school. We're going through a bunch of renovations right now. So it's a 100-year-old school with a 100-year-old opportunities for growth. So it's a really exciting time over there. I think that for what Orlando is going to be, and what where the inspiration is really in the students, right? And so I think that providing a more direct path or a more direct pipeline for students in the visual, industrial, and performing arts to get that connection to local arts in Orlando, because we know we have fabulous employment opportunities with our theme parks, and yes, and that should be celebrated. And these students that are, great artists, they should be getting into, Imagineering and working with that, or some of our great props houses that we have here in town, or even, students that are interested in visual art, opportunities to volunteer at OMA or anything like that, right? Because it's really about, the arts are about reinvestment, and the arts are about that continuance of celebration. And we can only do that through our young students that are thriving here in Orlando, because we want to keep those homegrown students that are here, right? And celebrate all these great artists, visual, performing, industrial, cultural heritage, right? We want to make sure that that doesn't fade away, right? We really want to celebrate that. And I think that's really important. So for me, that's something that I would like to see in the future, and I'm kind of working towards.
And Howard is an arts magnet middle school, I believe. What does that mean?
So what a magnet school means, here now every county is slightly different, but a magnet school essentially specializes in a specific sort of skill. So you can have an arts magnet, you can have mechanical magnet, something along those lines, right? So for us, we're a visual and performing arts magnet, which means that all of the students' electives are either visual or performing arts based. And so they can have that opportunity to really develop these skills further through integration of arts in the classroom. And a lot of our teachers there do have, which we have an amazing faculty at Howard, and they really do celebrate the arts within their classrooms, in the science classroom and the STEM classrooms, right? They're really driven to, because we all have a passion for the arts. And so for us, it's still that same mission of inspiring students and letting them kind of celebrate the arts. So a magnet school, back to your question, pulls kids that are from anywhere in Orange County. They come to that school specifically for those opportunities.
And Dr. Phillips High School is the Visual and Performing Arts magnet for the arts for Orange County.
Yes, we actually have two. We have two high schools. We have one middle school and two high schools here in Orlando that are visual and performing arts magnets. So Howard is our middle school that's visual and performing arts. And then Dr. Phillips, yes, is visual performing arts, and University High School over on the east side of town. They're also a visual and performing arts magnet as well.
All right. So do many of your students go to one of those two?
Yes, they do. I was a teacher at Odyssey Middle School for several years, and a lot of my students, because that's zoned for the same area as university. So I got to know that faculty really well as well, because it's all about prepping students. So I'm constantly in contact with the eighth grade, with the teachers, the freshman theater teachers, to make sure that I was prepping my eighth graders in the way that they would be the most successful at university or at, wherever they would go to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, Dr. John Payne Rios just received your PhD, your Doctor of Education.
Yes.
Thank you for talking with me today. Appreciate it very much.
Of course. Thank you so much, Terry. Have a great day.
And thank you for watching this edition of Playfully Orange.